But while we wait for those calls, I do want to talk to you about something that's really like at the top of mind for me, especially with this winter weather that we have coming in. A lot of these wrecks that's caused by the snow, the rain, the winds.
You got to be careful out there. The Alabama law on that is that when you are driving in inclement weather, in bad weather, whether that's snow, whether that's rain, whether that's wind, you got to drive at a speed that is reasonable. And in a manner that is reasonable. Reasonable is hard to figure out exactly what is that.
I tend to agree.
If you're driving 65 miles an hour and there's ice all over the road, chances are you're not driving within a reasonable speed. So police can pull you over, and they can give you a ticket for that. And then you'll have to go in front of a judge and describe why driving 65 miles an hour in ice and snow and rain is reasonable. So be careful out there.
And when you get into situations like that to where you may be the cause of an accident in those conditions, the fact that you are driving perhaps at a speed that's deemed unreasonable, how does it affect how your insurance, your auto insurance covers that wreck and the injuries?
Same sort of deal. If you're driving at a speed that is not considered reasonable and that you get pulled over by the police or you cause a wreck or whatever the case may be, God forbid, hurt somebody, you can be considered negligent. And because you're negligent, you may be responsible for the damages that you cause, whether that's damages to the car that you hit or the house that you hit, whether that's damage to the person that you hurt. Those can be things that your insurance carrier can be responsible for and ultimately can not only affect the people that you injure, but also your insurance rates. So, everybody needs to slow down when we got rain and snow and wind is the moral to that story.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. Now, we do have a caller who is on the line.
Sure.
Martha, good morning to you. Can you hear me, Martha? Okay, it looks like we do not have Martha.
We do want to remind you, though, if you haven't already, go ahead and call us. The number is 256-536-0077, 256-536-0077. Of course, we have Heath right now ready to answer your call if you will give us a ring. I guess I could ask you another question. It comes to my mind. When you end up in these situations where you might have caused this accident because you are, again, as you put it, not driving at a reasonable speed.
Right.
Beyond the consequences as far as a ticket or as far as insurance not covering the accident or your injuries, the other person's injuries, what about jail time? What about criminal consequences?
You can, it's the same thing as if you are traveling beyond the speed limit. The police can give you a ticket. If you're traveling way beyond the speed limit, it could be considered reckless driving. You may have a very hefty fine. Sometimes, even if you've done it enough times, you may be able to, grant yourself some probation time or potential jail time. And another consideration when it's raining and it's icy outside, if you go somewhere, if you go into a restaurant, if you go into a big box store, or you got to pick up something, be careful when you walk in the door, because if there's water on the floor and you fall, maybe there's no wet floor sign, but what the law in Alabama says is that may be your fault. So you've got to be careful everywhere you go when you're in this kind of a situation. And I saw Grace was putting up a graphic where there was some ice and snow potentially coming. Be careful. Be careful.
Definitely.
Can't stress out enough.
Well, we do have another caller on the line. Henry, good morning to you.
Hello.
Hey, go ahead with your question.
My question is, why isn't a balloon release considered littering?
That's a good point.
Very good point.
Why isn't a balloon?
A balloon release.
Oh, a
like
balloon release.
Celebrations or for honoring someone, memorials.
I think that that is considered littering. I think that probably would be considered littering under the law. The question is it enforced? Right. When you release a balloon, I can remember I had an uncle that passed away several years ago and we released balloons. Now looking back on it, I wish we hadn't have done that because the impact that has on animals. Those balloons migrate to people's property. For the people releasing the balloons, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But I believe under the law that probably would be considered littering. It's just not something that is generally enforced by the law for a couple of different reasons. Right. One, it's hard to find out who did it.
Right.
When you find a balloon in your woods, because we own some property in North Georgia, we're finding balloons all the time. Find balloons in your wood, who sent them out, who let them off. And the other thing is most of the time the people release balloons, that's not going to be on the top of the priority list of law enforcement to prevent.
Right.
So, we're talking funerals and things like that, and it's just that's probably an enforcement issue.
And I think
That was a good
environmentalists
answer.
are pushing to change that
Oh
a
yeah,
lot too,
sure.
more
Yeah.
so
Oh,
than
yeah,
law
sure.
enforcement.
Animals eat the balloons. It's a
Yeah.
problem.
Now we do have time for one more quick call. So caller, are you there? Good morning.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I was wondering if you're if you lose your wife and husband and you're a senior over 60, 65, if you get remarried, can they take your Social Security checks away, the government?
Can the government take it away?
And that's an interesting question, and that happened. That's a question that I actually hear a lot: is whether or not you're entitled to the Social
Right.
Security benefits of your deceased spouse. And the answer to that, I believe that it's really dependent upon whether you're talking retirement benefits or whether you're talking about your Social Security disability benefits. And it's going to be specific, and I'm not sure which one we're dealing with here, but that's certainly a question that that you could ask somebody who handles Social Security disability, Social Security work. There's a lot of attorneys out there to do that. But I can tell you that there are times where if you get remarried after your spouse has passed away, you can actually lose the right to obtain their disability benefits. I think it may be a little bit different rules for retirement benefits. And it also depends on how long you were married too, and how long your spouse was working.
Okay.
Definitely sounds like a good question to follow
Yeah.
up with an attorney who handles those kind of cases.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. It can be a difficult road to navigate.
Absolutely.
As I can see.
Yeah.
Well, if you did not get your question answered, remember that you can always give our friends over at Timberlake and League a call by giving them a call at 256-536-0770.